going to do our third and our last Fireside interview for today, and I'm going to jump right into it. And for this one, I'd like to bring on Dieter, who is the chief architect of the Flow Foundation, and they've been working on a massive upgrade to their whole network over the last year. So we're going to discuss a lot of that. So please give him a big round of applause.
So I'm going to do something. I'm going to grab the steering wheel from you for just a second before you get to start.
Let's do it.
This guy is at every single ETHGlobal event. There are, like 9 of them a year now? And it's been 7 years. Can we just give this guy a round of applause, please?
Thank you.
It's not all you, obviously, but
mostly everybody else. I'm just on stage more.
But you're here, and I'm glad for it. So thank you, Kartik.
Thank you. While we're on going down memory lane, he was at the very first ETHGlobal event 7 years ago.
That's right. CryptoKitties was.
That's where CryptoKitties came
launched,
out of.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think you've helped get more people excited about crypto than we have, because people definitely remember cats more on the internet, and that's clearly worked. We have hundreds of people in this room, 1,000 more coming tomorrow, and it's been awesome to see the growth there.
Yeah, so. No, it's been a great ride.
Well, let's see. So I want to talk about a lot of things, and I'm actually curious. So one thing we'll change for this discussion is we're going to actually go a bit more into talking about trade-offs. And the thing that we've seen is a lot of experimentation in this space. We've seen different blockchains. We've seen different ways of thinking about building smart contracts. We've seen different trade-offs of how you think about security and scalability and decentralization. And you've been part of all of that from day zero. And you've seen every version of this. And you've experimented with things. You've changed some ideas. And this year has been pretty big. So I'll keep this vague, but I'll let you kind of answer this question, which is there was a massive network upgrade that the Flow blockchain did. Tell us about what that was and why that happened.
Yeah, so we had an upgrade that launched about a month ago. We called it Crescendo, but internally, there was almost some talk of maybe calling it Flow 2.0 or maybe even 1.0, because when you start a thing, you have a vision for it, but when that only goes so far when people start to use it. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that the architecture team did, that the engineering team did. So many of the calls we made, that many of which seemed very risky at the time we made them, they panned out very nicely. I think there's a lot of talk these days of data availability. We invented a data availability layer to be a part of Flow. We just didn't know to call it that because no one else was talking about it at the time that we built it. We call it the collection nodes. And so what happened this summer is that we finally got a thing where all of the pieces that we knew we wanted, right, are in good shape, but even the things that we didn't anticipate were introduced. And so we'll get to the big one in a second because I know you'll want to talk about that. But just before we get to that, our performance increased. We're at a sub 1 second block time. We have very fast finality, about 7 seconds to finality. We're able to do between 500 and 1,000 transactions per second using our own programming language called Cadence. Cadence is, it's a step change over Solidity and EVM in terms of ease of use and expressibility and developer power. Cadence went 1.0. There were a number of features that in the initial versions of Cadence sort of fell down on, and Cadence 1.0, it cleans up a bunch of stuff. It allows us to promise forward compatibility so that any code you're deploying today is going to work indefinitely on the network. And so it really is just sort of getting to that level of maturity that we always dreamed of. But the thing we didn't predict, and the big feature that I think most people, especially in an event like this, are going to be most excited about is that we introduced EVM equivalence. And EVM is something that people have been talking to me both internally, people asking me about EVM equivalence, externally, lots of people asking the team about EVM equivalence or EVM functionality. And for years I had pushed against it because as much as I owe to Solidity
You
and
don't have
EVM.
to be nice.
No. I want to be nice because like CryptoKitties, ERC 721, like those things couldn't exist. The fact that Solidity is a pain in the butt sometimes when you're a smart contract developer, I have no animosity towards it because who knew what a smart contract was going to look like before Solidity was written? Like it really was the thing that created an entire category of software development. On the other hand, we shouldn't be surprised that the first time someone attempted to do this thing, which is create a smart contract programming language, they didn't get it all right. And Cadence it depends on research. It's based on research from Carnegie Mellon that was done, 6 years ago. It's based on the object capability model, which is research that goes back into the 80s, I think. And it's just it depends on so many things, but it just brings those all together in a smart contract programming environment in a way that makes it so much more expressive for developers. So we have this language, we love it, we think it's so much better, but everyone's like, well, where's EVM? And I was like, I don't like EVM. It can do worse, but the requests made sense. Like they weren't people just being masochists. They're like, no, I get it. Solidity is a pain in the butt, but guess what? I already wrote Solidity, right? I already learned Solidity. My code is already audited, or the smart contract I want to use is already audited, and you're saying I have to rewrite that from scratch. That's a non-starter. People like Circle, right? They had to do a custom integration in order to support Flow because they had to do everything in Cadence. And that was difficult for them to build, but it was also difficult for them to rationalize going forward, right? That's a maintenance cost. They want to upgrade their systems, they have to upgrade the Cadence implementation. So the last reason I pushed back on EVM was that I just didn't want there to be two competing environments within Flow. Flow, the whole reason we built Flow, the biggest number one reason we built Flow was because we saw this vision of smart contracts working seamlessly with other smart contracts, and the idea of app chains or sharding or like a dozen L2s, all of that makes it difficult for smart contracts to work directly with smart contracts. And creating two VMs was gonna ruin that. And then we had an epiphany. My good friend Ramton, who's a researcher on the team, came to me and he framed it as, what if we ran Ethereum as a VM inside Cadence? You can think of there being an Ethereum emulator which is exposed to the rest of the Cadence smart contract programming language as a smart contract, and you can feed it transactions, you can make state queries on it, and we can then build a JSON RPC that looks just like Geth that will take transactions from MetaMask, from any backend code, and feed it into the EVM. And when I realized that we could have EVM support that to an EVM-only client looked just like Ethereum or any other L2, but to Cadence looked like an extension of the existing programming language, it was a no-brainer.
Maybe a very specific question. Is this an extension, or is this a Cadence smart contract that is an EVM interpreter?
So it is. So from inside Cadence, it looks like a Cadence smart contract. There is a little bit of Cadence layered in that smart contract, but mostly what we've done is, you could think of it as a precompile, right? Like the actual EVM execution is a precompile inside Cadence, where it's literally the Geth code, where we've carved away all of the API stuff and just have the actual EVM running in there. We use a different storage layer because that's actually one of the people think EVM is slow. It's not slow. EVM can easily do 20, 30 transactions per second. But the Ethereum state tree is slow. And the Ethereum state tree can only do about 100 to 300 transactions per second. And so we use our native, we already had a state tree for Cadence, so we just used our own state tree. And so we're able to get really great performance out of EVM.
And is this the same as transpilation, or is there a nuance there?
No, there is the EVM, as most people know it, the code that that is in Geth, that is the sort of reference implementation of the EVM, is literally running inside our node software. We took that code, we forked it, and merged it into our chain.
That's awesome. And it went live.
It did, about a month ago. Yeah.
And what's been the reaction?
The reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. I think you can think of it in sort of three groups of builders on Flow and their reaction, right? So one group is cross-chain infrastructure providers, and this can be bridges, this can be stablecoin providers, this can be oracles, and they had for a very long time, they want to support as many changes as they can that are legitimate, and we would often talk to teams that really want to integrate with us, and the fact that they had to do custom infrastructure was a pain, and so we're like, great, now we can give them EVM, and those people have gone nuts. There's a ton of people that are in that bucket. The second group of people, and honestly, I didn't expect there to be a big wave of those, and there's been a surprising number of those that have come in the even just in the last month. Are application developers who want to they're not necessarily cross-chain, but they are EVM-first, right? They're either taking an existing contract and modifying it, they already had a project and they hadn't launched it on a chain yet. And so those people, they're really excited to come because it's a greenfield opportunity for them, but they're also seeing the advantages of having Cadence available, because when you run into the limits of Solidity, and anyone who's written any Solidity code has bumped their heads against the limits of Solidity, you have Cadence there to extend it. And so you don't have to rewrite your code, but when you want to add features to it, you can use this more comfortable, more expressive language.
So talk about that. So does that mean I have now access to new APIs in Solidity, or I get to do other things to take advantage of Cadence-specific features?
So there's one big feature that we've been able to expose directly to EVM code, which is we have a verifiable random function built into the chain, and we expose that through the RANDAO field in the block information. And so if you depend on randomness, the source of randomness you get in Flow EVM is much more secure and up to date than the RANDAO on Ethereum. But for most of the things, the reason why it was imperative that we write a new language is that a lot of the features that I'm talking about, they're not possible in EVM, right? So
Get some examples?
yeah, I'm happy to give you some examples. So I think the big ones that are easy to explain is, one, the account model in Flow is, it's basically account abstraction without there having to be a smart contract running code and costing you gas to do the account abstraction. So we support key cycling, we support multi-way keys, we support alternate key types, we support the ability to delegate approvals from one account to another account. So you sign with that account, but you actually are running the code as this other account. All of that's built into the network. So that's a good one. The other one that's really interesting is, if people know multi-call or they think about batching, every Cadence transaction is a script. And you can do loops, you can do, if then else, you can do, you can do whatever sort of logic you would express. And because Cadence can call into EVM, you now can, so let's say I'm an app developer. I'm building an NFT marketplace, and I know that a feature I'd like to give my users is that they want to maybe buy all or nothing. There's 3 NFTs, and they want to have them all or nothing, right? It's going to complete a set for them. They don't want to buy 2 and then have the third one disappear, right? And so it's kind of a pain to do that in EVM. But what they could do is they could create a Cadence transaction that does those 3 EVM actions that to the EVM look like 3 separate transactions, but to the Cadence side is a single transaction. And if any one of them fail, you can abort the whole thing. And even if the third one fails, the first 2 get unwound because it's an atomic transaction. And so but I can do that without rewriting my smart contract, right? Like I can, if I'm OpenSea and I have all of this code that I've written over the years to do the trading, I don't have to change any of that. That's all still Solidity. My back end that's like querying the chain and reading all of the events from the EVM and whatnot, that doesn't have to change. I just get to add this one feature. And yes, I'm using Cadence because that's the only way to express that feature. You can't express that feature in EVM. But it's only in the part of the application. Exactly. So it lets me opt into the advanced functionality without having to rewrite the rest of my application. And then the third group of people that that at first, when we started talking about EVM, some of them were actually a little bit annoyed, and that is people who are native Cadence developers. And I understand their annoyance because it was hard for them, right? They came to a new chain, especially when many of them joined. The chain was very early. The documentation was not great. The language wasn't, solidified, and so they had to put up with a lot of BS. And then they found out after all of that, they're like, oh, we love this chain because it has this better programming language. It was kind of a pain for us to use it because it was early days. Now that you've finally got the language, nailed down, you're introducing EVM. Like, I thought we were committed to Cadence here, and so they were a little frustrated. And fortunately, it didn't take very long before they realized that actually EVM gives them big advantages. Remember those cross-chain infrastructure providers I talked to you about? They can access all of that from Cadence. So if there's an EVM-only DEX,
user base just became bigger, yeah. The user base just became bigger, and so did the opportunities.
Exactly, and not just the user base, the capability base, right? So if there's a new DEX that's EVM only, every single Cadence application can call into that and use it, right? If there is a bridge that's EVM only, all of the assets that are bridged into the EVM side go right into Cadence and their work with a Cadence-only application without any knowledge of EVM. And so everything that comes to Flow EVM is coming to the Cadence side as well. And so they have more users, they have more assets, and they have more capabilities.
Which is a pretty good win.
It's a win-win-win. It's pretty exciting.
Flow and just Dapper Labs in general over the last few years has been very good at getting a lot of people in the mainstream audience to use and get into crypto, and also abstracting that experience so that it's not the first thing that they're annoyed with and kind of disappear. And you've had massive success there. And although you're answering a lot of this from the point of view of a developer, I'm kind of curious to understand kind of how do you think about what technical advice you can give to people who are thinking about building consumer apps here. Are there things that you've learned the hard way? Are there things that you think are just now easy, or things that that usually end up becoming a problem as you hit some scale as a product? What kind of goes into that world from somebody who's seen that from 0 to millions?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was an engineer on CryptoKitties and designer on CryptoKitties, quite involved in the Top Shot development, and then these days, I've left Dapper Labs and now full-time on Flow Foundation. But, I think the biggest advice I can give to anybody who's thinking of building an application is to keep in mind that every feature you can build can fall into one of two categories. It's a hygiene feature, or it can be a motivating feature. And hygiene features are the things that users complain about, and motivating features are the things that people love. And that is why, like, if you ask yourself, oh, there's this app, I hate it and I love it, right? Like, why do you hate it? Because the motivating aspects of that application, that you need them, right? And so if no one hates your application, it's probably because you don't have any motivating features, and they don't even need your application, and so they don't hate the little paper cuts that every application has in it. And so the trick with motivating hygiene features is that you can't oversolve them, right? Like, if you have a bad login and that keeps people from using your app, that's a problem. You got to fix that. But no one's going to use your app because you have the best login page in the industry. Like, it's an absurd notion. And so what's kind of bonkers is that so many of the features that we built into the Flow were, from that standpoint, they were hygiene features. But at the same time, like, I honestly think there's so much about the assumptions that people in this room don't mind anymore, right? You've seen the motivating features. You're okay getting over the fact that you have to install a Chrome plugin or use a special browser in order to use this stuff. But most users won't do that. You're okay with the fact that if you need, for various security reasons or security hygiene, you want to use a new key instead of the key that you've had for the last 5 years. You're mostly okay with the fact that, yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass that I have to move all of my NFTs from one account to another, but at least I can do that, right? Most users aren't going to do that. They're going to see that frustration, and they're just not going to cycle their keys. Well, now we've created a system that is ripe for them to lose their assets. And so it was a critical aspect of Flow that we be able to cycle keys. And so I think as an application developer, I think you need to be really cognizant that that if you're going after a mainstream audience, you have to solve those friction points, you have to solve those hygiene problems, but that can't be the only benefit you're providing. You have to make sure there's a motivating feature that is going to draw people in. And figuring out how to balance those two sides, I think, is the magic of product development. And so, good luck.
I have two questions I want to ask before we end this. And the first question is, with all the stuff that you've done with bringing EVM to Flow and giving now Cadence developers and also just other EVM developers a lot more opportunity and access to just more success, does any of this go back to Ethereum? Is this good for Ethereum? Is this bad for Ethereum? How do you think about that?
Well, it's great for EVM developers, right? Like if you have Solidity code and there's some aspect of your application that you wish you could do a more advanced version of, like please come try out Flow EVM. I guarantee your EVM code is going to work exactly the same way, but then you have access to Cadence and all of the incredible powers of that. The way that might reflect back on the Ethereum ecosystem is that, you know, like most things in this industry, Cadence is open source. I'm not aware of any other project that credibly promises a better programming environment for smart contracts than Solidity that lets you start with Solidity and then layer that stuff on. Like there is no sort of EVM++ out there. And even if it's not Cadence, I hope that maybe this example we've shown of how you can sort of run an EVM equivalent as like a virtual machine inside the more advanced programming environment. Hopefully there will be at least some L2s that make an attempt to either use our language, which I think is excellent, and obviously I helped design it, but like anyone I've ever talked to who's gone from Solidity to Cadence has been like I have people on my team who, when we said we were doing EVM, they were so mad at me because they are smart contract developers. They knew they were going to have to write Solidity code again. And they're like, I want to do that again. I'm like, don't worry, we have contractors for this. But it really is a more expressive and enjoyable environment. I mean, the people who audit this stuff for us are like, they love it. They love it because it's just so much
Makes
easier.
everything simpler, yeah. So my final question to you is, what is the Flow Foundation's North Star? Like, what are you optimizing for? What matters here? And what is it that you're trying to do?
I mean, the vision of Flow from day one has been, and it's kind of funny that I'm like, hey, I've left Dapper and whatnot, but like the whole reason we built Flow was because when we started Dapper and we just finished building CryptoKitties, I was asked as the CTO of Dapper Labs, what blockchain are we going to build on, right? Because Ethereum clearly can't scale to 1 million users. So what are we going to build on? And of course, there were a bunch of different blockchains out there that were being pitched. And I looked at every single one of them, and I was like, I am not willing to bet my company on these. And when we started talking to our investors about building our own blockchain, they were not bullish, right? And they got it in their heads that we wanted to control the blockchain. And my answer always was no. Like, I do not want my applications that I'm building, because I still thought of myself as an application developer back then, to be running on a system that anyone is worried it can be captured by a single organization, whether that's governmental or non-governmental. Because the power that we're going to get in the long run is not just the applications we build, but the ecosystem of interoperating extensions to that application and all of the users. And if we can't credibly promise to our users that the thing that we're selling them, that the experience we're giving them is going to remain free of undue control and is going to run indefinitely, even if we as a company shut down, that we're not following through on our promise. That's the promise we want to give to our users. And so from day one, the whole goal of Flow has been to be a genuinely independent, decentralized, autonomous blockchain that happens to solve the scaling trilemma and have a better smart contract programming language and an improved user experience. And so we've followed through on the promise of most of that, but building all of the underlying pieces to get to sort of an Ethereum level of decentralization. It's just because it's such a complex blockchain, we're not there yet. But we hear the same thing. It's the same story from Optimism and Solana and all these things. Like, they know that they're not done yet, and we're not done yet. But we're moving that way, and so that's my goal right now. 100% is to be the blockchain for normal folks, and the success metric I use is how many application developers are successful on top of our chain, and so all I want to see is all of you building on Flow and building a business, a long-term, sustainable business that's creating value for you and creating value for your users. And so if there's anything we can do to help with that, please let us know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that amazing chat, and please give him a big round of applause.